Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Watt, and again we're joined by a special guest while we take a deep dive into the tools of access consciousness while we explore this amazing planet that we live on. Welcome everyone to the next installment of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast, and this is going to be probably, unless I muck up the order of things, episode 3 of like a little special series that I chose to do, engaging with the access consciousness facilitators and practitioners in Australia and New Zealand. So, as you know, I've been quote unquote stuck at home now for a few months, and it's been a long time since I've been in Australia for this long. And I started to get an awareness to engage more with my peeps, with my local peeps. So I am so excited to welcome my next guest. She lives in Western Australia in Perth. She's amazing. Her name is Sarah. It's Sarah Andros. Welcome to the Consciousness Road Trip podcast.
Thank you. So good to be here, and thank you for the invite.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we were like, it's funny, and I say this in all of my episodes, we kind of have a bit of a direction with these podcasts and where to go. But like anything, I think you show up somewhere, you make a choice, and then you just say yes and go with it. So, but what we did talk a little bit about before we started was just how much more people, I'm going to say how much more people are willing to look at and talk about our mental health. And I think because and I've mentioned so many times, what I'm grateful for about COVID. And this would be another thing is I think in a lot of people's worlds, it's exposed a little bit more of their vulnerability, and it's put us in a place where we may be a little bit more willing to talk about things openly that we may not have been ready or willing to talk about before we went into this place of lockdown and being physically separated from one another. So yeah,
100%.
like what are you aware of with that? And what are you aware of basically?
A lot of us will don't always take the time to sort of sit with ourselves and really get a sense of what's actually in our world. And so we will be distracted. We'll go out and catch up with friends, or go to the gym, or go to a restaurant, or go to a bar, and those things were all removed and have been all removed. So we've found ourselves with ourselves more, right?
Yeah.
And I've been really grateful for the tools of access consciousness during this period, particularly when there has been so much fluctuation in terms of, happy, sad, stressed. Like there's so many things out there that you can be aware of and that people are going through. And to have these tools has been a godsend, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved what you said then as well about, because it's such a vein in the conversations that I'm having lately about this thing of how we created our lives pre-COVID, like how we created from this space of always needing to be on the go or busy or having things to do, which in a way you can still choose to do that. Like I like to be busy. I like to have a lot of things on, but now but now there seems to be a space where we get to look at it more based on what we desire to create, like what's important to us or something like that.
There's been a real reset in terms of what's important, whether that be the people that are important in your world, the things that you choose to do with your body, the things that you engage your time with. It's sort of like we've had this reset of, okay, what's really important for me and what am I going to choose moving forward? And I guess that I've seen some people kind of go, oh my gosh, I've got to go back, like we're going back. And I'm like, there's no way we're going back. Everything that was has changed and is gone. And you can't take that same mindset or way that you were thinking about things forward and expect it to be easy. Yeah. So I guess that's the piece too, is like the willingness to go, okay, well, maybe there are things that have got to be different now. And maybe there are different ways that I can look at stuff from a totally different perspective.
Yeah. And like for people out there that are listening to this, like they may have done some access and some people may have done none. Both Sarah and I are facilitators of access, we're people that use these tools in our daily life. When it comes to this space where people are getting to where they're like, okay, I get this sense that everything's changed, everything's different, I'm willing to choose something different. What tools or advice would you give people where do they start? Like, what's an easy way to start looking at the reality you desire to create moving forward for you?
Wow, so many things come to mind. There's a couple of things. So I guess I realized, like, as I was, going into my 40s, that a lot of the life that I'd created was based on what I thought I should do. Perhaps it was based on what my parents or this society thought I should do. And I got really clear when I started doing the Access stuff that I could actually choose a life of my own creation. Like, I could create my life. I could design it, I could create it, and I could add things to my life that were not necessarily what I'd been told to do. Yeah. And so one of the questions I often ask is, and I teach this to people as well, is like, what's the energy of my true life? And I know that might sound like the most bizarrely simple question. So if you can go, wow, what is the energy of my true life? And get a sense of things that you could add to your life or you already have in your life that would contribute to that. Does that make sense?
Yes. And what I love about it is, with that question, there's no start and there's no end. Like, what I loved about what you were saying then was, like, when you got into your 40s and you got to that place of, like, looking at, okay, so how have I created my life? It wasn't like, oh, well, I've just done this for 40 years, therefore it's too late, I can't change it. Like, what I love about this conversation and about that question is, there's no wrong time to start it. There's no time that even comes into the equation. It's this thing of, like, you could wake up and ask that question every day, and what you get a sense of and what you choose may be completely different to what you chose just yesterday, let alone 10 years ago. Yeah.
It allows you to be ever present with yourself and the energy of what's true for you. And again, like you say, that can change, totally. It can totally change. And I guess, like, we also have these ideas about, like, what you were saying, how, like, you wake up and you can choose what you'd like to do with your body. You can choose what you'd like to eat. And so often we've sort of gotten into this, like, dogmatic routine of, this is what we need to do and this is what I need to do and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, rather than, okay, so what's the energy of my true life?
Yeah.
Okay, so actually that's just a bit of a mind, excuse my language, am I allowed to swear?
Go for it.
A mind fuck, right? Whereas, and it gets you out of that place where you've decided, this is what I should do, and I'm on this track, right? And this is the way we're going. What is the energy of my true life? Allows all these different, this whole smorgasbord of possibilities, and then you can choose what is matching you in that day, in that moment. I literally like a smorgasbord.
I love that analogy because I love food. So it makes me think about food and just how much having all of these choices in front of me is like.
Seriously.
And the other thing, right? And the other thing I love about that, and you'll never get fat, you can eat as much as you want. The other thing, everything that brought up, right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. And there we go, kids. I did it. I ran the clearing statement, which I do sometimes on these podcasts and sometimes I don't. But when an energy comes up, it's so much easier to just run it because it clears that energy and lets us keep going forward rather than sticking us to whatever that was that it brought up. So if you have never
100%.
heard those weird words before, just head to theclearingstatement.com. Dane here does a brilliant job of explaining it, and you can watch that over and over again, save me going through it now. So the one thing also that came up for me is can we talk quickly here about, with having this energy of your true life, where it also actually includes everyone else? Because I'm sure if you're a mum or a dad, or, a lot of the time I think what you were saying also with you choose and create your life based on the needs of others or the needs of this reality or what you think it is to get things right. But where is it we can have it all? Like, where is it we can have all of us and include everyone else?
100%. It's like that kingdom of we, where our choices are not just to create more for ourselves, it's to create more for other people. And again, they may not be the choices that are kind of, you should do this because of this, because of this. It's more, okay, so maybe it's like parenting kids, actually. It's sort of like you think that if you do one thing, it's going to create this. And if you just really go with the energy of it and you honor yourself and you honor the child in the process, whatever it is that, if you're listening to that, I'm trying to think of a concrete example to give you, it does actually create more. Like a lot of people will go, okay, you know, I'm going to give this to my kid, I'm going to do this to my kid. And sometimes in reality, the willingness to go, well, actually, no, that doesn't work for me, allows the mother or the parent to be, you know, engaging with what's true for them. And it also inspires the child to choose what's true for them rather than, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this win-win where through your choices to honour your life and what's true for you, you inspire others and engage with them and allow them to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can think of my childhood and really watching, you know, like my mom is a prime example because she was my primary caregiver, like basically my whole life. And she fucking worked her ass off to do the best she could to raise three kids basically by herself financially and emotionally and all those things. And I still remember watching her make choices based on what was actually going to work for other people and not necessarily us kids. And I'm sure she did a lot of that as well. I'm sure she did a lot of that. But what really stood out for me is where she chose things to keep other people happy. And I remember like noticing that and being like, not cognitively because I was quite young, but also knowing that there was such a wonkiness in the way that people choose. And like how much from a very young age are we actually super aware of what our parents and the people around us are choosing, and that never actually goes away. We're very aware of that right now. And where, Sarah, you've brought up this energy of being true to your life and true to the energy that creates greater for you is completely not any of that in a way. Like it gets you out of this place of that wonkiness when it comes to choosing. And so many people struggle with choice. They're like, well, how do I choose? Like, isn't choosing just a matter of like choosing something? But I think also what's coming up with this is where it gets you to a place of really, truly having your own back and making choices that are going to create a greater life for you as well. Yeah,
totally.
It's very awesome.
You have that chance to really commit to the things that are true for you. And I mean, I've seen it with some of the choices that I've made, you know, my marriage and ending my marriage. And I remember my son sitting in one of my classes one day when I had separated, and I asked him, you know, what would you like to get out of this class? And he said, I'd like to know, Mum, that I have the freedom to choose like you do. I'd like to know that I don't have to do things the way that other people do it. And I'd really like to be able to do what I'd like to do and create my life the way I'd like to create it. And I'm like, wow, at 14, that was immense, you know, like shoes. I didn't realize that my choice to honor the energy that was true for me has instilled in him the knowing that he could choose that for himself too.
Yeah. And I mean, God, if there was that's basically like wrapped up that as in such a perfect example of how this kingdom of we works, because that's really like how when you're willing to choose what's true for you, it includes everyone. And you can still have all of the people in your life that are a priority to you, that are special to you, that are important to you as a priority, and continue to make the choices that are honoring of you. So like what I would love to say is like, what if you wrote down what Sarah said? What was it? Asking for your life's energy.
What is the energy of my true life?
Cool. So what if you guys wrote that down? What is the energy of my true life? And for like a day or a week or a month, you just started playing with that as well. And whether you like have a little note in your phone or a piece of paper that you carry with you, and whenever the energy's up, ask the question. And then when something pops, what if you just started a list and started to have an awareness of the things that were the energy of your true life, and then started asking to add more of it? Like it's actually can be easy and fun as well.
Like they might be activities that you like to do, or, you know, things that you used to do years back that you still love that maybe you're not choosing, or like a sense of what you like, how you like to feel. For me, the energy of my true life, it's got to be fun. I'm not going to choose it. Yeah. So fun is kind of like an underlying thread, right? So it's like there's this demand that if you go, okay, it's got to be fun, maybe it's got to be easy, or maybe includes other people, whatever it is that is, and it's going to be unique to you. Your energy is different to everyone else's. And then there will be activities or things that you could choose, or even things that you can create that will match that And when that's all congruent, life becomes a lot more easier.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And I liked what you said as well with the energy of fun. And the fact that whatever the energy of your true life is, it's going to be different for you than it is for your husband or wife. Like the people that are closest to you in your life, your children, these people that you spend the most time with and you're the most closest to, it could be so very different to what theirs is. So where can you also claim, own, and acknowledge your energy of your true life to be different from everyone else's? And
totally. And
and even what's fun too.
Yep, go.
Yep. No, you go.
I was just going to say, sometimes it's uncomfortable when you start to choose and change because you're not being what everybody else is expecting of you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm going to be honest, it's not necessarily going to mean that it's an easy ride. Like you choosing for you, people may be, well, hang on, you've gone and changed on me. Oh, but what do you mean you're not going to be that for me anymore? And it's not that you're separating from other people. You're just choosing more towards what you desire to create. And it may inspire them to have a relook at what their life is about. We get stagnant in our life. And COVID has been, again, a great instigator of change and choosing differently. Mm-hmm. So I get that's probably why this is kind of topical right now, is people looking at, okay, so I was working that many hours and driving through peak hour and everything that I was doing prior to COVID. Now, would I like to do that now? Is that still valuable to me? And does that really match what's true for me? And can I do things differently?
Yeah. And I loved what you brought up as well about the comfort factor, like where it's going to get uncomfortable. And like, guys, also, and recognize where actually in uncomfortability or those places where you're not comfortable, true creation and change exists. Like it's, a lot of like, there's like a lot of sayings about getting out of your comfort zone and all that sort of stuff. But what if it was like, where have we tried to use comfort as a way to dull down like our capabilities and our awareness and what we're actually, what our capacities are? And where is it where we're willing to get a bit uncomfortable? Can we be, like COVID has been, the catalysts for change in this world? And what if the greatest change comes from a place of being uncomfortable? And what if the new comfortable was uncomfortable? It's like, I'm the most uncomfortable up there, probably the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my whole life right now, this last 24 hours. Yeah. And I went into a bit of panic stations, where you get a little bit of the in the belly. And it's like, okay, so I know for me personally, when I get to this point, on the other side of that or directly underneath it, however you want to look at it, is the boom. So if I'm willing to just keep going, keep choosing, keep saying yes, keep asking questions, but I will get through this. This too will change. It may get more uncomfortable, but whatever it is that's up right now,
Totally. I always say to people, if I'm working with a client, I'll always say, if on the other side of that uncomfortable is more of you.
Cool.
It's like that.
I love it.
On the other side of it, just please don't give up. Keep going. That uncomfortable is all the stuff that's coming up for you to have what you've been asking for. And that uncomfortable is the stuff we refuse or we resist. And it's right there going, am I going to stop you? No.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's keep choosing what you're saying. Keep choosing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's even with the fun things, like it's even where how much can you get out of your zone of comfort with having fun? Like just recently I've bought I've added another horse to my life and he's here close to me. And even like where I chose with the process of purchasing him and working with the guy that previously owned him, I really had to get out of my comfort zone and be vulnerable with Casey, the guy that bred and trained this horse, because I got the sense if I do this, if I choose this and take my time, he lived out at the property. I went out and rode in there, spent time with Casey, like, whereas I usually would have been like, give me the horse, let me go and sort this out myself. Yeah. And I just got this sense that if I'm willing to slow this down and do it a little bit differently, it's going to create something greater. And it was uncomfortable, like showing up to this farm where I didn't know like a working quarter horse farm where they train some very famous horses. He's very well known, and being like, hi, I'm Sarah. And I'm like not the best rider in the world, but I'm here to learn. And he was just so willing to give me anything. Like he gave me his time, he gave me his knowledge, and I would drive out there like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like it was that real getting out of my comfort zone thing. And now it's just creating this place of like something so much greater too. So what if even those things, like what if that little nervous feeling in your stomach is actually your steering wheel, your barometer to tell you you're going in the right direction? What if like the more uncomfortable you get, the more you know you're on that path of changing things? Yeah, I love it. It's such a cool
It's so funny you talk about that in the tummy. I was just on a Facebook with Simone Molasses, and we were chatting about one of the biggest things. I lived my life thinking that was always like me being anxious and nervous, until I realized that maybe I was actually excited. So yeah, it's yeah. Just thought I'd bring that in. So
no, I love it. And like, look at that too, guys. Like, where have we bought something because people have told us that that's what that feeling is? My sister actually mentioned something similar. She tends to have that, which I get a lot of us have, that anxiety, anxiousness, nervousness, butterflies in the tummy. Like, what if you asked a question of like, what is this? Like, what's the energy underneath this? What is truly going on here? For her, that feeling of anxiety for her was her heavy. So there's another tool in Access called Light and Heavy. And basically it's a great way to start recognizing things that like a little choice director in a way. And she would get these anxious feelings when energies came up or when certain things were going on. And she always brought it as her own. And then she was like, oh, what if that's just my body's way of telling me that it's a no for me? Like whatever that is, it's just a no for me. And she's like, oh my God, it was so like, because she'd bought it as this one thing and then she realized it was something totally different, and it just completely freed her up from things as well. So
that light heavy tool, that is gold. I used to always try and logic it out. You know, I learned very well from my dad who, you know, you've got to weigh it up, pros and cons. And then if I just ask, okay, so what will this choice create? And I get, for me, it's like a sense of lightness and I feel really expanded. And I'm like, or if I get this like clunky, it feels like I've been kicked in the gut, that's my heavy. And it's like, so if it's light and I just choose it, that's what it's going to be like. And I started experimenting with that, and gee, it's so much easier than trying to nut it out with your head.
Exactly. And that's another cool tool to play with too, guys. Like if you're listening to this podcast, start to ask, what is my light and what is my heavy? And sometimes you can almost like start to do a couple of like test runs where you know something is a no for you, a heavy, and go there energetically. You don't have to go there for realsies, and perceive the energy in your body or what you sense or what you feel in your body, and start to realize, okay, so that's a heavy for me. That's the heavy feeling. And then start looking at what this light feeling is for you, and then start using that as a way to, and it's like the yes no universe as well. And like you guys know, the minute you ask a question, your awareness will give you the sense of what's going to create greater for you. So whether it's light and heavy or whether it's yes, no, what if you also started playing with that for you? And it so ties into what we've spoken about, because the energy of your true life, your yes and no is not going to be, and your light and heavy is not going to be the same as anyone else's. So where can that also be a part of that? Yeah.
And that pairs up really nicely with what is the energy of your true life, because usually if it's that light, if it's that yes, that's you. That's what you're asking for. So it's such a great tool to pair up with that, so that you can really go, okay, so I wonder what would this be like if I chose it? Ooh, does that match the energy of my true life? Woohoo! Yeah. And then it just makes.
See, we're brilliant.
See?
Apparently we're brilliant. We're like, we talked about this one tool and then we wrapped it all into this other tool. So
fantastic.
Look, if people, right, so brilliant. The Sarah's brilliant. So if people desire to know more, find out more about you, get in touch, know what you've got coming up, what's the best way for them to find out more about Sarah Andros?
Sure. Well, I do have my own website, sarahandros.com. Or if you want to see classes that are coming up for me with Access Consciousness, it's www.accessconsciousness.com/Sarah Andros. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Love to see you.
So, yeah. And thank you for being here. And this conversation was really a huge contribution to me too, which is why I love creating these podcasts with all of these amazing people, you know, at home and abroad. So thank you so much. We'll list all of the websites and places for you guys to find out more in the show notes. And yeah, on to the next adventure, huh? I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope the weather's just as spectacular on the other side of the country as it is here. It's very
glorious.
wonderful.
Yeah,
right?
We're so lucky.
How did we get so lucky?
Totally.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Enjoy it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye, love.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. If you'd like to find more of my podcast or more information, you can head to my website, sarahwatt.com.au/road trip or sarahwatt.podbean.com. See you on the next episode.